Hello, listeners. This is Kat. Welcome back to Put Your Hands Up Podfics. This will be the continuation of All For You. This will be days 53 and 54. Day 53, 33 weeks. The sound of his cane against the hospital floor echoed in the empty hallways. It was late, yet visiting hours were still open. Good. Sorahiko had business to attend to. For once, he was not in his hero costume, although it felt like a bad idea to get anywhere near that bastard without being 100% ready to fight. He wasn't here as a hero tonight. No, he was just here as Sorahiko. He had been one of the largest advocates against this whole farce, but it seemed everyone, from Nezu to the HPSC to Toshinori himself, was gearing up to make this deal into a reality. He thought it was a terrible idea from the start and still thought it would end poorly. At best, he interpreted it as a nuclear war. Each side had the power to destroy the other, but only held back because they had too much to lose. For Toshinori, that was normal people, society. For All For One, it was a single baby. A single, dying baby. He did not think it would last. He saw the honeymoon phase Nana went through with Kotaro when he was little enough to be held in her arms, and he saw the way she wanted to tear her hair out when he was 2. But Nana had been a good, kind, patient person. All For One, he would get tired of playing house before the year was out, he was sure of it, regardless of whether he sacrificed his empire for this game or not. Somehow, though, the bastard had managed to convince Toshinori, even Nezu, that he actually gave a damn about his kid. He wouldn't believe it until he saw it with his own eyes, even if he would rather the bastard be dead. Sorahiko handed his immunization forms to the lady at the front desk and was led to the NICU. While he had never been to Tanima, the design of the pediatrics unit wasn't unfamiliar. He had been Nana's hero partner for years. He'd been tricked into taking Kotaro to appointments in such places before. Before One For All. Before All For One killed her husband. Before Nana put Kotaro in foster care. Before All For One killed her. The memory put a sour taste in his mouth and an angry heat in his gut. Too soon, the nurse, leading him, knocked on a door. He could hear the devil's voice murmuring from a distance. His voice made him sick. The nurse let him in. Blood red glowed in the dim room. All For One stiffened as Sorahiko walked in. A book sat open on his lap. "Good Night Moon," the cover said. His chair was pulled as close as it could be to something. Toshinori was right. It did look like a glass cage. But he wasn't here for the kid. He was here for the kid's father. All For One closed the book and slowly stood up. He shifted to stand in front of the glass cage, his eyes narrowed to slits and his mouth pressed into a thin line. Sorahiko almost wanted to laugh at how obviously uncomfortable he was making the monster. He'd never given a damn about him before. Sorahiko kept his face stony. All For One stared back. The kid's monitors beeped behind the villain. A tiny, barely audible whine broke the tense silence. All For One twitched, his entire body making an aborted move to turn around, but he didn't take his eyes off Sorahiko. "I'm still against all this," Sorahiko said. All For One said nothing. "You do not deserve to have your son when you were the reason Nana could not have hers," Sorahiko said. All For One said nothing. "And I know Nana's family is not the only one you tore apart," Sorahiko said. All For One said nothing. "I think you're going to ruin that kid. You're the last person on the planet that should be allowed to have a child. Lucky for you, I'm not the only one with input on this decision," Sorahiko said. He started walking closer to the villain. All For One twitched again, but did not budge. Sorahiko lifted his cane and jabbed it into the villain's chest. All For One said nothing. "But know this, All For One. If my stupid colleagues decide to go through with this for some unfathomable reason, I will be watching you. You get one chance. If you waste it, the only one paying for it will be you." "I would expect nothing less," All For One rumbled. Sorahiko left his cane where it was and glared into the monster's eyes. All For One met his gaze and did not falter. Sorahiko broke away with a snort, pushing his cane one last time into the villain's chest. He turned around and walked out. He'd gotten what he came for. Day 54. The door creaked open, and Hisashi peeked open one eye but otherwise didn't move. Izuku lay on his chest again, hidden behind his hands and a small mountain of blankets. He had waited nearly another month to be able to hold Izuku again. He didn't want to disturb him. But beyond that, he was simply exhausted. Anxiety had been building in the back of his mind ever since that last meeting. He knew they had come to terms, but until it was all on paper, he felt he couldn't be sure of anything. The stress from dealing with Izuku's recovery was not particularly helping. He was eating and sleeping again, or at least attempting to, but he wasn't doing very much. It was taking its toll. Holding Izuku again let him relax a little. It was an intense relief to know that no matter what happened, he would be able to say he held his baby more than once. It was also a very good sign for his recovery, which was all the more reason to relax. But still, the anxiety persisted, that every moment with Izuku might be his last, that he would forever be able to count the times he held his precious sunshine on a single hand, that any day, any moment, all his work, all his sacrifices to stay by Izuku would fall through and he would be torn away. He had done quite literally everything he could. He had given up his empire, his power, a good chunk of his quirks, and even his bodily autonomy. God only knew what the HPSC had in store for him. But it was not up to him. At this point, just like in all matters regarding Izuku, he was powerless. Being this helpless was eating him alive. He blinked again, clearing the blurriness from his vision. Ito beamed back at him. Hisashi asked, raising his head a little. I can see you're busy, and a little sleepy, so I'll make this short, Ito said, walking across the room. Hisashi pressed Izuku closer to his chest, ever so gently, as to not disturb him. Ito held out a piece of paper. Hisashi craned his neck to look. It was the form he had sent All Might an eternity ago. There was a signature on it from Yagi Toshinori, and an approval stamp from the HPSC. He blinked, uncomprehending. You did it, Midoriya-san, Ito said softly, her smile growing somehow bigger. You're in the rehab program. You have full custody of Izuku. It took a moment for the words to process. It's over, then? Hisashi asked. Ito nodded. Hisashi melted into his chair, the looming anxiety finally releasing him from its claws. There will need to be some more meetings for information exchange as well as your input for secure housing, but we can arrange that later, Ito said, placing the form on the table next to his chair. Congratulations, Midoriya-san, she said. Thank you, he murmured, looking down at Izuku. A moment later the door closed, and it was just him and his baby again. Hisashi kissed Izuku's head, barely there, green wisp tickling his lips. Izuku grunted, but did not wake. That part of the battle, at least, was done. Some part of him dreaded what was to come, but he refused to entertain the emotion. He had said to himself, and any spirits that might have chosen to pity him that night, that he would do anything. And he would. It was more than worth it. Ring, 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 ring. Hello, this is Inko Midoriya. I'm sorry I missed your call. Please leave a message and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Beep. A heavy sigh. I did it, Inko. It took everything, but I did it. I got to keep our son. A tired chuckle. It was worth it, love. Now I just have to try to do as good a job as you would have. I'll keep you updated. Until next time, Inko. Call ended. All right, listeners, this concludes day 54 of All For You. We are nearing the end of this fic. Let me know your all's thoughts and reactions to everything so far. And as always, thank you so much for listening.